Here's an overlooked fact for startups in B2B tech. You might be aware that buyers executives who decide on tech strategy and purchases have always relied on industry analysts to inform their vendor selection. But this number has gone up from around 75% in the 2000s to now 92% in 2025. And that's primarily because technology has become more complex and more impactful in organizations. For startups, this means a huge opportunity because research also found that 8 in 10 industry analysts are keen to speak with startups specifically to identify innovators they can confidently recommend to these buyers. Now, few startups know that they can take advantage of this factor, but you should. Good morning, my name is Holscher. I've managed highly successful analyst relations AR programs with tech mega players, and a few years back I switched sides to help startups punch above their weight and win by leveraging analysts as a secret weapon. And here's in under 10 minutes what types of startups are using this, more specifically why it's so powerful, and when startups should initiate which types of AR activities aligned with their growth journey. So first, who needs to know? In short, this is only for innovators with propositions in technology or services categories, and those targeting medium to large companies, public organizations, or even government agencies. If that's not you, no need to dig deeper. But if you're meeting these criteria, the following minutes are important. Still here? Then let me specify what I mean with innovator and categories. So you're only of interest to analysts if you're actually innovating. And that's broader than technology. It can also be process innovation or service or commercial innovation as well. But just a new feature typically doesn't carry enough weight. Even applying a new technology is only relevant if it unlocks bigger strategic value. Now, what are examples of tech or services categories that analysts actually cover? On the right, you see a list of more than 600 startups that earned the spotlight in emerging vendor reports, such as the Gartner Cool Vendor Report, the IDC Innovator, or Forrester Tech Tide reports. You also see the categories mentioned, and these either relate to technologies, business functions, or industry solutions, or any combination of these. Now, at the moment, US-based startups still dominate such emerging vendor reports with around 65%. But Europeans have notably caught up from 19% to 27% in just the last 5 years. I'm sure you've spotted some prominent names in the list. We have actual unicorns. We have high growth firms, and many of these have been acquired by now. We have innovators that are shaping categories that are only just emerging. So, quick summary. If you're targeting medium to large companies or public organizations with innovative tech or services propositions, this next chapter will be exciting. So what exactly is analyst relations so critical for a startup? Let's follow the data. The University of Edinburgh Business School found that startups that earned the spotlight in such emerging vendor reports developed significantly stronger over the first 4 years. And instead of the typical 50% death rate, these startups showed an impressive 84% survive and thrive rate. And we examined this in more detail. So in 2025, the State of Startups with Industry Analyst Research, or SIA, asked experienced participants from venture capital firms what benefits they observed in startups that actively worked with industry analysts, and the results were staggering. 71% saw higher revenue growth, and 86% saw a reduction of risk, and 100%, so literally all of them, observed higher speed in these startups. So it's no wonder that top VCs urge founders in B2B tech to initiate AR early and practice it strategically. Andreessen Horowitz have nicely said something that I've made an entire video about earlier, and that is, once you've exhausted the potential with your superfans and your early adopters, you'll face more critical buyers in the early majority and everyone behind. And these are the 70% of buyers who seek guidance from industry analysts before making IT decisions. So you'll only succeed with them and cross that chasm and get into real scaling mode if you build reputation with the analysts that matter in your categories. That's just a fact. But let me also take you through a very founder-relatable and typical situation. For that, we need to remember that analysts' primary value proposition is to differentiate between complicated things. And buyers consult with them and pay them to protect their purchasing decisions from vendors' sometimes overly confident marketing. Now, if your innovation is snatching market share from established vendors, these large firms typically can't follow your innovation as quickly, and instead, they try to defend their revenues and compensate their lag by throwing big marketing and PR money at it. They simply repaint their old stuff and sometimes even hijack your messaging without the actual ability to do the same thing as you. We've all seen this, we all hate it, and this is not just frustrating, it's often fatal for young emerging vendors because you can't out-PR those mega players. But if you've done your homework, briefing the industry analysts that buyers listen to in your space, then this is exactly where their role, their impartiality, and their weight protects the actual innovator, that's you, from the mere pretenders. Now suddenly, you stand on the shoulders of a giant and are able to fight back much better. This makes analysts the most powerful natural allies for startups. Now, speaking of speed, on to our part 3. So when should startups begin to work with analysts? First of all, this is not a purchase. You can't buy analyst placements. And it's not a one-time campaign either. AR is just part of the game because the competitive landscape is evolving all the time. Anyone who stops rowing gets washed downstream. So when should you start AR in terms of product maturity? Most first-time founders think they need to have everything polished and build up revenues before reaching out to analysts. But the majority of analysts actually told us they want to hear from startups much sooner. So in fact, as early as your MVP is defined or in beta stage, and in any case, ideally before pilot customers, as valuable as they are, have messed too much with your original thinking. So for many founders, this feels like starting before they're ready. But VCs, as Sapphire Ventures, have pointed out there is no downside to early analyst engagement at all, because analysts are not in the news business. They're neither out to get you, nor do they sell your secrets to your rivals, because it would mean game over for them immediately. They are in the business of differentiating, as we've seen before. And because of the unique insights that they get from buyer inquiries into these companies' strategies, their near future planning and real concerns, any analyst commentary and questions you get during a briefing can be pure gold and a real accelerator for you. The earlier, the better. From a funding stage perspective, AR experienced VCs and startups agree. You should identify the most influential analysts in your space, basically from day one. Then prepare for and offer introductory briefings as early as you can. And for most founders, that'll be around seed stage. If you procrastinate on AR until Series A, you're handing months, if not years, of advantage to your rivals, large and small. That's in terms of visibility to your target customers, but also in terms of attractiveness to Series A investors, because analyst awareness and analyst advocacy in investor brains mean verified potential, faster growth, and lower risk, as we've seen. Now, this makes you a far better candidate and can change your term sheet substantially. Because 85% of high-experience VCs say that they use industry analyst data and insights, 57% use them to identify and assess startups, and 2/3 recommend startups they should professionalize their analyst relations. So, against old-school belief, initiating analyst relations should come long before chasing Series A investors. And if you're in or beyond Series A already, your best moment to start AR is right now. So I hope you found this useful. I can share a lot more data and roadmaps, frameworks, and best practices because Startup AR is not a baby version of large firm analyst relations. You want this to be no nonsense, no overhead, priority aligned, and OKR led. The QR code takes you to a scheduling page for a free Ask Me Anything session. I can do 2 or 3 per week, and I'll be as useful as I can to help you make sense of it all in your specific situation. Also, happy to connect on LinkedIn, of course. Just find Chris Holscher, and I look forward to talking personally.